We essentially are all the machine tool manufacturers in the country and the supply chain. We have a membership of approximately 500 companies, 470 plus companies who are members of IMTMA. Some of you may not know us as IMTMA, but a lot of you would have visited the IMTEX exhibition. So IMTEX exhibition, as you know, is Southeast Asia's largest machine tool show, and this is held every year now at the Bangalore International Exhibition Center on Tumkur Road in Bangalore. I'm sure that you are aware of this, and IMTMA is the organizer of this IMTEX exhibition, and you can see in that photograph a view of BIEC. Besides IMTEX, IMTMA is involved in various other activities. For example, all policy related to manufacturing, machine tool industry, with the liaising with the government of India. We are also involved with certain other major programs, such as the Machine Tool Summit, which is meant for the members in the supply chain. We are also involved with this Productivity Summit, Productivity Summit, for which I'm going to talk to you about it, with the Symposium on Automation, which is another major event that we have. And besides that, we also organize international seminars on machining technologies and forming technologies in conjunction with the IMTEX exhibition, wherein we showcase a lot of international speakers which indicate in what way these technologies are moving forward. And it's a very good input from the latest technologies that can be seen not in the exhibition alone, but in the world today. So these are some of our major events, and besides these events, IMTMA is also involved in a lot of major training activities, some of which you may have attended in the past, or we have now various short-term, long-term courses. We have courses for fresh engineers. So all this, I'm not going to go into too much detail about all this. You can find it on our website, which will come up a little later. Now, with this very brief introduction of IMTMA, I would like to now present to you the Machine Tool Summit. And for that, I would like to invite Mr. T.K. Ramesh. Mr. T.K. Ramesh is the Managing Director and CEO of Micromatic Machine Tools Private Limited. It's a marketing company of a 2,500 crore ACE Micromatic group of companies. They manufacture all the major machine tools, CNC lathes, machining centers, CNC grinding machines, various subsystems of machine tools, etc. They are one of the major exporters of machine tools to all over the world. By qualification, Mr. Ramesh is a Bachelor of Engineering, Mechanical from BMS College of Engineering, Bangalore. And then he also is a postgraduate diploma in business administration. Mr. Ramesh has 38 years experience in marketing and management of capital equipment, marketing in domestic and international markets. The ACE Micromatic Group is the award sponsor of this National Productivity Summit. And we would like to ask Mr. Ramesh to briefly talk about his company, as well as what is it that made their company sponsor such a very major event. Over to you, Mr. Ramesh.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Gautam, for that kind introduction. Thank you very much. Am I audible, Arjun? I hope I'm coming through clearly.
Yes, you are.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me turn out my video and save some bandwidth, and let me get to the presentation. Arjun, can I have my presentation, please? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My own words of welcome to this morning's program here. And I very quickly over the next 8-9 minutes kind of take you through what we do, some of our philosophy, and then how and why we are associated with this particular event. Before I go on to talk about my company and my products, I would like to kind of briefly give you all why we are associated with this wonderful national event, the National Productivity Summit. We have been associated with this event right from its inception. We started off in the very first event as a participant, and subsequent to that, we have been some kind of a contributor or a partner, and for the last 6 years, we have been the award sponsors of this event. We strongly believe that a lot of work gets done inside the shop floors, in the back rooms, and it is very, very important that we need to create a platform and a showcase that will portray truly the real productivity champions, the heroes who are on the shop floor, the people who work on improving their company's bottom line, processes, output, and work strongly to meet customer needs. And we thought that this was a wonderful platform by a national association which could be used to showcase, to motivate, and to bring out the real heroes from the shop floor to the back rooms. So creation of this platform was something that inspired us, and we being in the machine tool business, and a lot of our customers we were seeing were doing some wonderful work inside their shop floors on our machines, on other machines, on various other productivity equipment. So we thought that it makes extremely good sense to help create this platform and work closely with IMTMA in building this. This is from a showcase perspective. It is also important that these heroes share their knowledge and inspire several thousands of other heroes in other companies across large, medium, and small scale industry. Because see, it's something like this. In trade, I have 1 rupee, you have 1 rupee, and if I give you that 1 rupee and you give me that 1 rupee, both of us still are left with 1 rupee. But if you have one idea and I have one idea, and I give you one idea and you give me one idea, both of us have 2 ideas. So knowledge adds, multiplies. So it is an avenue by which, from a nation building perspective, from creating a kinship perspective, this is an extremely good knowledge share platform and an inspiring platform, so that all of us together could work and really bring levels of productivity to the manufacturing space, and this would ultimately lead to the prosperity of all of us, and obviously the manufacturing fraternity and back to the country. So these are some of the thoughts behind which we are associated with this wonderful platform, and I urge every one of you to please participate and showcase your talents. Yeah, next slide, Arjun, you're fine. This is very quickly now I get into the ACE Micromatic group. The ACE Micromatic group consists of a front-facing product manufacturing companies, ACE, AMS, Micromatic Grinding, Pragati, and Amit. Now, these are companies that make products. I come from Micromatic, which supports all these products and is the interface between you, our customers, and our principals who are the manufacturers of these machines. And we also have a back-end, deeply backward integrated supply chain that provides us with our inputs, our components, and this background integration also gives us a strong feel of the component manufacturing industry about their challenges, how machines are being used. So while we make our own components as separate business entities, this also gives us a lot of feedback about our products and helps us in product innovation and service innovations. Next slide, please. Strategy from a group perspective and from a size perspective, our best turnover, which was the year 1819, was about 25.7 billion rupees, which is about close to 370 million US dollars or 330 million euro. We are about 3,700 plus people all put together. We have over This is a little dated. I think as on date, we've got close to about 55,000 machines working with customers, successfully working with customers and successful customers like you. Next slide, Arjun. Now, I would like to kind of give you briefly our philosophy. You could be thinking, why so many names? Why so many companies? One of the backgrounds with which we have grown is that for us to be successful in anything, it is very, very important that we must have focus. So from a product perspective, all of our turning activities is concentrated in ACE Designers, which is one of our principles and the parent and the mother company of the entire group. And it's also the biggest company of our entire group, called ACE Designers, whose focus is on turning machines, turning solutions, turning application engineering, and this is what they actually do. ACE Designers has about 600 people. Same slide, yeah. And we've got all the facilities, and about 12% of what we produce here is exported. Next slide, please. I would like to spend a minute here to give you all an idea. This is a flow line assembly. We were the first and the only Indian company to manufacture machine tools in a conveyor line, which we call the flow line assembly. Again, this was an inspiration that we got from our friends in the automotive industry. While the automotive industry makes cars or motorcycles in tens of thousands, we learned from them, and while they have an automated assembly line, we have a manual assembly line, and now our automated machine assembly line is also almost ready to function now, soon after we get out of this COVID situation. But this was something that we did and showcased this as a learning and as a productivity improvement in the very first productivity summit when this whole thing began. So again, this was an idea which we used in the machine tool business. And again, while the idea was from the automotive industry, this led to kitting, standardization, time scale, takt time for assembly. And while all this was happening, there was so much of standardization that happened that the quality of the machine, the performance of the machine, and its life and subsequent service also got standardized to an extremely great time. And at that point in time, when we first started, we said one machine per line per day. And today we have one machine per half a day. And the number of lines have multiplied. And this is how we moved from a company making machines, say 200 machines a year, to over 6,000 machines, which is our highest output, which comes down to 500 CNC lathes in a month. And again, so this is how what productivity can do. This is how people can get inspired, and this is the kind of transformation that every one of you all can see within your companies if you all take up productivity seriously and apply these techniques inside, and then inspire other people to do it within their companies too. Next slide, please. We've got over 50 different models, a big range of turning machines, right from 4-inch chuck size, 6-inch chuck size, 8-inch chuck size, and between centers, right from 300 millimeters all the way up to 3000 millimeters, 4-axis machines, twin spindle machines. A complete range of machines are available in the turning line, and all of this comes from the ACE Designers spindle. In addition to this, we also make special machines with complete automation for large volume products like bearing rings, engine valves, where we've supplied lines and lines of machines. And I'm very happy to say that we believe that we have enabled the automotive industry through ancillarization, and a lot of the MSME units like that you people come from, to have made the Indian ecosystem very, very conducive for small car and two-wheeler manufacturer, and moving it way high in the global ranking. Next slide, please. This is the second company where we make machine tools. ACE Manufacturing Systems, or AMS as it's popularly known. We manufacture machining centers here. We started off with vertical machining centers. We now have a big range of horizontal machining centers too. AMS has been one of the fastest growing machine tool companies in India, and we have a big range of machines that we can offer from AMS. Next slide, please. Arjun, next slide. Yeah. We have simple drill tap machines. Sorry, you were right, Arjun. Yeah, we were the time like that. We have drill tap machines which are extremely fast, which can compete at much lower cost to many of the imported models like Fanuc or Brother, which are used for drilling, light milling and tapping operations, BT30, BT40. We've got vertical machining centers, again the BT40, MCV 400, MCV 450, MCV 500, a big range of over 70 different types in XYZ movements, powers. We have a range of horizontal machining centers, and one of our very, very popular machine has been the twin spindle vertical machining centers, which have 2 spindles and can be used to make W production on a single floor space, with saving of operators, saving of system, and also saving of power. These are some of our very, very popular machines. Of course, details you can get from our website, or if anybody is interested in further details, we could have one of our people drop by and see all too. Next slide, please. Micromatic grinding is one of our oldest companies of the group. We make a range of cylindrical, centerless, and internal grinding machines. We have a capacity of over 400 machines a year. Grinding, of course, is not made in the kind of numbers that lathes and machining centers are. When we started, again, there's a very close connection with Imtex and this company. The first machine that was displayed in Imtex 1979 was a machine that broke the roundness accuracy of machines manufactured outside of Europe. We guaranteed on live spindle grinding at that point in time 2-micron accuracy machines, and today we have machines that are capable of grinding with roundness accuracies of less than half a micron. Next slide, please. Yeah, sorry, I just spoke about this, and in addition to centerless in these machines, we also have some special grinding machines, which are like valve seat grinding, cam grinding machines, which are used for specialized components in aerospace and such activities. Next slide, please. I would like to spend a minute on this particular slide. Grinding is a science and an art, and many people believe that they need to understand the process and to convert this art into science, or to make science so good that it becomes like fabulous art. It is very important to understand and approach grinding in a very systematic way. So we've developed a lot of software tools. We've also developed a lot of hardware probes, which we use on our machines for process optimization, and which we could offer as services to work with customers to solve their grinding problems, whether it's on our machines or whether it's on other machines, where we study systematically and take inputs from the process of what the part is presented as an input, what actually happens as microscopic interactions during the grinding process. There are methodologies and gauges by which this could be measured, and we understand the process better, and that gives us data to play around with the inputs and the process parameters so that the output gets closer and better to what we want. Because in grinding, we're all looking at sub-micron accuracies, where size, finish, and many microscopic issues of product, wheel, and also chatter, surface finish become extremely important, which need a very scientific investigation and an artistic intervention on the data and on the inputs that come from the scientific investigation. So this is a service that we have is a competency that we have developed over these years, and this also could be offered, and we would be willing to work with customers on this particular issue of systemic approach for grinding processes. Next slide, please. I would like to spend a few minutes on this very, very important aspect. We know that we are all tied down, and how we've taken up to IT and virtual conferences in times of need, especially in a situation like this. So Industry 4.0 and getting data from the shop floor in real time is something that all of us have been talking about for the last few years, maybe the last 2 or 3 years. But I'd like to tell you that this is something that we have been working on and we have been doing since 2005. Yes, I repeat, since 2005. So that gives us about 15 years of prior experience. The only difference is at that point in time, we were calling it production monitoring and productivity measurements. Now, this is an extremely important subject, and I think it is very, very important from a customer perspective to really understand. One, from a productivity purpose. Second is, are you really making profits or are you just making chips? Now, if this needs to be done, then it is very, very important that you need some kind of a system by which you take data from the shop floor directly from the machines about production, stoppage, there are stoppages, how and why there were these stoppages. So this is something that, as I was saying, that we have been doing since 2005. And if you can go to the next slide, please, Arjun. So like I said, this was something that we launched in 2005, where we were talking of this as production monitoring and productivity improvement. This again is a solution, a complete solution. There is hardware that gets attached to the machine. This hardware connects with the different systems of the machine. Some could be from the CNC system, some can be from the slide stop, slide start, the electrical logics, and it will be able to count in real time parts produced, interruptions in program, correctness of program, while it measures and captures this data on the machine. This could be sent out to a computer system in your shop, or could also be sent out to the cloud. And with this data, we make reports and dashboards which the decision-making people, when I say decision-making people, it's not necessarily only the owners and the managers, but even operators. We have used this very, very effectively inside our shop floors, where he is able to understand how many parts he's made, how many good parts he's made, what is the variation in cycle time, what are the frequency of stoppages, etc. Because ultimately, it's not about policing or monitoring that person, but enabling that person with all this information so that he understands where the issues are, and giving him data which helps him to take those actions, could be corrective, could be preventive, that helps him produce better. This is from a productivity perspective. And it is also possible to continuously measure and preempt a lot of preventive maintenance by which breakdowns can be predicted or prevented, and the machine could be kept in, when I say machine, it could be our machine, it could be any other machine, it could be any equipment, in good shape for continuous use. So this is an extremely important aspect that we've spent time and effort. And again, the purpose of this is we used it inside our own shops for many, many years. And while we are machine tool manufacturers and we are machinery manufacturers, it's important that not only the machines work well, but customers should understand, are they working well and are they producing well? So it was with those thoughts that we entered into this line of software and IT integration for manufacturing, well ahead of the time. And this is an offering that I would urge all of you to look at seriously, and this could help you all in your productivity case studies. It's just an idea slide to give you all that, since 2006, we won the IMTMA Siemens Productivity Championship Awards for this product of ours. And Economic Times said that this was one of the most powerful ideas way back in 2012. We've got over about, I think, close to 15,000 machines connected and installed working with TPM Track and productivity solutions from us. So this is something that I would strongly request all of you to think very, very seriously about as a productivity enhancement and a productivity measurement tool. Next slide, please. This is again a pictorial depiction. We could use this in process energy monitoring. If you're doing assemblies, of course, I spoke about real-time OEE and production. We could also use this as a Pocoyoke for online inspection, for tracking, tracing. This could be used in machine diagnostics. Again, I spoke about this, about preventive maintenance. We've also got an eShopX, which is about workflows by which, again, what this means is what the machine should do, which program it should run. All of this can be controlled from a centralized place. And this information, including the program, including the part, including the instructions to the right machine, could be sent from a central planning station. And the visual factory and on boards are something that are these outputs that can be displayed to the people who matter to show, okay, is production online? Is productivity as what you wanted it to be? Is the cycle time planned versus actual? Correct, not correct? How much ahead? How far behind? In real time, shown in the shop floor, so that the concerned people can take action in real time and save it. See, please understand one thing. This data. And finally, I come down to Micromatic, which is the customer facing company of the ACE Micromatic group. We also have a lot of measurements for ourselves. We look at MTTR as mean time to repair, and we have a target of 4 hours, and 85% of all our customers' calls are met and closed within 4 hours. We very, very strongly believe that we are in the machine tool business, which is a capital equipment, and if we need to grow, and the fact that we have been growing is thanks to customers like you, and we understand, we believe, and we work that unless and until you grow, we cannot grow. So we are committed to your growth and making sure that you are productive and your machines are up and running. Next slide, please. This is the same. We have over 50 contact points, and we are the only machine tool company with so many branches across the company, because we believe hand-holding and support and good asset utilization is the key, specifically to the MSME and the bigger OEMs who are dependent on this MSME. So we are 700 plus people, 7 technology centers, 2 hours to respond and 4 hours to repair. These are the targets that we set for ourselves, which we measure in real time on a weekly and monthly basis. Next slide, please. We have also started exports. We have our own presence in Germany and China. We began our China foray about 8 years ago. I'm happy to tell you all that we have over 1,000 installations in China working, because at that point in time, it was thought that price and competitiveness, whether we will be able to do it, we will not be able to do it. Again, I'm not saying that we've been a great success, but we made those little steps. We have 10% of our sales through exports, and we are slowly but surely looking at a global footprint for Indian manufacturing and Indian machines. Next slide, please. This is very quickly, I'll go through this. We've got customers across the entire spectrum of automotive, aerospace. At one point, we were about 80% automotive. Today, with a lot of de-risking, we're about 50% still automotive, and the other 50% from all the other sectors put together. Next slide, please. We can go through these slides very, very quickly. This is just to give you an idea that we're working with the best names and their vendor and supply chain from the four-wheeler perspective. Next slide. Two-wheeler perspective and their supply chain, and the general engineering, aerospace, motors, all kinds of anybody who is manufacturing parts and assemblies in any sector, we have machines working with them. Certified, we believe in the environment and we do believe in doing things according to process. Next slide. Thank you very much. Thank you for your patient hearing.
Thank you, K. Ramesh. There were a few questions, but I think we'll take them a little later.
Yeah.
I would now like to now go ahead with this program and start the presentation on the Productivity Championship Awards and the NPS 2020. So Arjun, can you please put on the slide? So we are now going to talk about the IMTMA ACE Micromatic Productivity Championship Awards, which is a national conference on showcasing manufacturing. Next slide, Arjun. So just to give you a background, why did we decide to do this summit? This is the of this summit around 15 years ago. India, country, has islands of productivity. There are places, there are companies who are doing a fantastic job as far as productivity is concerned. But as regards the rest of the manufacturing, the levels of productivity do not compare to that in many of the developed countries. So what can we as an association do to make this difference, make this movement, how to spread the movement of productivity in manufacturing? So this was a challenge that we had with us, and we said, okay, let this be a movement where people learn from other people, where people share innovations, share their ideas, where there are experts and professionals to guide. So all this needs to be done. Productivity case studies should be presented, and this should be the way forward as far as this movement is concerned. So Arjun, next slide. So this is what we said. So we said, okay, to do this, should we not reward exceptional achievements in productivity? Should we not highlight or achievements of heroes in different areas? This will motivate young people who come to this summit. We recognize teams and groups and individuals who have done a fantastic job in their organizations, and thereby spread this movement and improve India's manufacturing competitiveness itself. So this was the basic purpose of doing this summit, to create a mass movement towards improved productivity in our country. So if we look at our footsteps, this, as I said, will be the 14th edition that we are planning. We've had 13 editions earlier. We've had 8,000 plus delegates who have come to these earlier summits. More than 4,000 case studies have been submitted. Of course, out of these 4,000 plus case studies, in every summit, around 10 to 12 case studies get presented, who are the best of the best. More than 500 plus contesting companies have participated in this summit. So it's become a national movement to improve productivity in manufacturing. And this is why we say that this is one great arena for people to come, share their knowledge, share their information. Over the years, we've realized that people start wondering, in what area shall I submit this case study? So we said, okay, let's highlight a few areas which will trigger your thoughts. For example, companies have redesigned their manufacturing systems. They have redesigned their flow lines. As Mr. Ramesh talked about, something similar. So there is an area of redesign of your manufacturing system itself. Companies have optimized their manufacturing processes, their work, the way they do. This is another area that you can think about. Our asset utilization by and large has not been very good in our country. So people who have presented case studies on how to effectively improve asset utilization could be another area that you can think about. Quality has always been an issue with us as a country. There are companies with very high quality standards, but there are also companies with not so high quality standards. And it has always been found that if you improve your quality, your productivity also improves. And there were case studies which have been presented in this arena as well. You might want to think about that as well. So these are some of the areas. Besides that, there are new areas. For example, the whole arena of digital manufacturing, automation, IoT, Industry 4.0. There is a whole range of things that companies have been doing to improve productivity. So you can have case study presentations in this area as well. People have come out with some very innovative ideas. For example, I remember one case study winner where they had used husk as a thing for fine finishing of their component, a natural resource like a husk of some of the things like say rice or wheat or bran, and that was used for finishing of components. So some very innovative ideas have come in this summit. Just give you an example. So those were also presented here. Not to say the least, we have also companies who are involved with project work. They are involved with a specific project and how they've improved productivity in these projects. So these are some of the indicative streams for submission, but this is not the final list. There could be something beyond this. So you're free to choose and select, but this is just to trigger your thoughts. Now, what will be done when you submit your case studies, and how you will submit the case studies, I'll come in a little while later. There will be a set of independent jury of prominent professionals in manufacturing who will study your case study, will look at your case study, and they will shortlist the case studies that will be presented at the summit. IMGMA and ACE Micromatic have no role in the selection process. So this is totally an independent jury-led selection process. You also be important that the very idea is that how does your case study, how does it make it noticeable to this jury? It has to be something different. Normal kaizens, normal improvements are not going to impress the jury. So think about it. Your case studies definitely have to have something unique. There has to be a USP to that case study, which will entice this jury to select you for this presentation. We also have, since the last 2 years, 2 summits, we have instituted a specific stream for the micro and small enterprises. We realize that they do not have the same resources, they do not have the same capabilities as some of the large corporations to present case studies. So we have this very special stream to encourage these micro and small enterprises to present case studies and also come as participants to learn from fellow MSME companies as well as large corporations. So this is how the whole summit is run basically. A very important aspect of the summit is the cash awards. We have up to 10 lakhs to be won as cash awards. We have normally a first, second and third prize. And for the rest of the competitors, there would be a certificate of appreciation. So this is how the incentive to participate as a competing company in this summit. Arjun, next. So now let's little bit spend time on why am I going to make a case study. So what is there at stake for me as a company? So the most important thing that I would like to say is that this is something where you generate pride. It's a question of pride to be able to come and compete and present in the summit itself. Of course, there is an incentive of the cash award. There is a motivation that this time, if you did not win the prize, the next time you compete with a better case study and win a prize. So there is a lot of motivation. There's a lot of recognition for the team or the individual who's presenting the case study in the competition, because he's recognized in the company itself, he's recognized by his peers. There is something to talk about to your family and friends. There is something to think about in your evaluation, professional evaluation in your company. I'm sure every company where the teams have won have definitely evaluated their team differently as compared to the rest of the employees. So there is a lot of takeaways for the individuals who are participating in this company, in this competition. Besides that, you could be participating as a company itself. For the company, you get a trophy which you can talk about, which you can project in your newsletters. You can project in your wherever you have your publicity. So this is an important aspect of as far as the company is concerned. There are, you will see from the list of winners, the past winners, that all major manufacturing companies have won awards. So you can stand shoulder to shoulder with all these companies who are award winners in their own status. Even if you feel that, okay, today maybe I'm not in a position to participate as a case study presenter, there's always a possibility to attend the event as a participant, to learn from others, to learn what others are doing, to learn, even pick up a couple of ideas and try to implement them at your place. It's always a learning experience. And maybe you will get motivated in the next summit to present a case. So there's a lot of takeaway for everybody, for the companies, for the teams, and even the delegates and participants at the summit. The next slide. How do you participate is the next question. So there is a 8-page detailed case study presentation that you have to send. I will come to that in a little while. And this 8-page case study presentation is then scrutinized, and from that it is evaluated, and there is a marking system on what basis it is done. And then around 10 to 12 case studies are presented at the summit itself, where the jury has the possibility to ask you further questions and seek clarifications. So all this is done at the summit at that point of time, and then the best of the best are selected. But let me tell you, even to get selected in this 10 or 12 case studies at the summit is an honor, and it's not easy. Now, what you have to do is you have to download the entry file on the productivity.imtma.in website. You have to submit this 8-page case study, and you have contact details of Abhishek and Prashant. You have their email IDs. But please bear in mind that the last date of submission of entries is 15th July 2020. So please start working on these case studies. If you are at home, it's a good opportunity to start preparing the basic case study. Maybe you need to get some data when you join back, but otherwise this is a very important aspect. Now let's have a look at the specimen case study. Please also note that this specimen case study is also available on the website. So you see, if you look at this aspect of this, is that you have to give a brief description of the project, what this project is all about. Then why did you project? This is very important. What triggers this project? Why did you take up this project? But why this one? To make the jury understand that this is a very important aspect. This is the reason why you decided to do this. The next one. After that, you have how did you look at the solutions? What are the innovation in the solutions? What were the alternatives that you looked at? These are all aspects that are being asked. Which are the different options that you have considered? All this is there in the second. You don't need to read everything. You can see this specimen on the website. I'm just trying to give you an overview of this. Don't worry if you read very clearly on the screen. That's not an issue. See it at your leisure afterwards. This is just a template. Then how did you implement this solution? Different options were considered. How did you go around into the implementation stage? What were the roadblocks in the implementation? What was the success rate? What were the changes that you had to do during the implementation? All this is discussed during this part of that presentation of the case study. After this, you talk about risk mitigation. You talk about, as I said, what are the issues and what you faced and how did you take care of them? All these things will be very much there. Please proceed, Arjun. Then finally, what were the results? What was the value created? What did it make? What impact did it make on your business? Did it make a substantive impact? Was it a small impact? What was it? Basically only those case studies which have a high impact will be selected. So if it's something minor, then this is not where you will get the results. How were the benefits? How did you present those benefits in different aspects? It could be quality, productivity, reduction of cost, and so on and so forth. There are many possibilities here. So all this you can see. Then what is the impact on the environment? Now, you know, how things are turning out with COVID and whatnot. There is so much of emphasis on what we did with the environment. Did it make a difference there? All this, what are the carbon footprint? All these aspects can be also presented in your submissions. Arjun, next. There are any other merits? How was it deployed? For example, this case study, this learning was deployed at other centers, other places. Did you get any other merit out of? Was there anything coming out of this as a subsequent thing which helped you to make a better, you know, improvement somewhere else? All these aspects will be talked about. So horizontal development, deployment in different areas, any other merits, and so on and so forth. So this is how the whole submission has to be prepared. We move ahead now.
We go to the case study.
What we would like to now show you, it's a video. Hopefully the network will be good and you'll be able to see a video of a case study presentation actually which happened in one of our earlier summits. It will give you an idea of how this whole case study was presented. You know, it gives you a lot of ideas on going around doing these things. So I think Arjun can play the video now.
A very good afternoon to the respected jury, ladies and gentlemen. Before I start my presentation, let me start with my safety declaration that I always show in my behavior that safety is my topmost priority and inspire everyone to follow. Just talking about our company, to give a brief, I am from TCAP, Toyota Kirloskar Auto Parts. And this company was established in 2002. Right now it is a joint venture between Toyota Motor Corporation, that's Japan, Aishin Industries, that's also from Japan, and we have Kirloskar Systems from India. We have basically 3 plants, that is engine, transmission, and axle plant. And you can see on the screen our product portfolio. Whatever units we manufacture that goes into the Toyota cars, that is starting from Fortuner, Hilux, Yaris, Etios, Krista, not only for the domestic market but also for the exports. The project that I'm going to talk about today is productivity improvement in transmission lines through quick setup change. Well, before I talk about the subject, what we have done, let me just give you a brief about why we have to go through this project. If you look at our business condition, in 2013, we ramped up our capacity, assuming that the market is going to expand for our product. However, 3-4 years the market not expand, further the volume started going down. This had 2 major problems for us. One is if you look at the impact, our fixed cost, that is depreciation, was increasing. The fixed cost was increasing. At the same time, this was putting tremendous pressure on our product cost. On the other side, the challenges that we had under this kind of a scenario was, one is we had a lot of projects which are coming up, like the transmission petrol line. We were supposed to put up a new diesel line. We were doing only petrol version. We were supposed to put up a diesel plant as well. So basically 2 major problems, that is underutilization of the plant capacity, and there is significant investment which is required for our next projects. From now I'll just try to tell you about our basic approach whenever we do a project. If you look at the slide, I just try to put some kind of presentation to make it easy to understand. We have an existing or current petrol line where the volumes are going down. Traditionally, when we have to put up a diesel line, then what we are supposed to do is, what we do is, since it is a single piece production, we try to establish a new line altogether. So traditional approach is to new line for new diesel project. So, but when we looked at the investment for the new line, we found that it was very high. Sorry, I'm not able to put the figures here because of confidentiality reasons. But our management said, after looking at those figures, please reduce it by more than 50%. So it was very huge impact for us. So what is the common sense that we can think about? Obviously, how to utilize the capacity of the existing line and do both the diesel and petrol in the same line. So that's what we also decided to go ahead. Let me just give you a little brief about what is the output that is required out of this when we talk about doing both the products in the same line. Just this slide demonstrates a little bit. I think I left my pointer on this one. Let me take a pointer. If you look at the slide, it is talking about a machining line, and then there is an assembly line. So what we require here is assembly line should produce both diesel as well as petrol variants. And under Toyota production system, we cannot produce batch production. We have minimum inventories. We produce one after the other. That is called as Heijunka or level production. If assembly line is to produce one after the other, that means it is going to pull from the machining line at a random pace. It may pull a petrol or it may pull a diesel version. So the moment, if you see the diesel version, say for example, one of the variant, if it reaches a minimum stock, then we are supposed to do a setup change in the line. So that's where the setup change came into picture, that we have to do complete setup change of this particular line. Let's also see what is the kind of differences that we had between the petrol and the diesel. If you look at both the transmissions are overlapped there. Size-wise, there's a lot of variation between both the transmissions. I put two of the parts to give a more clear picture. So if you look at the ring gear, it was more by around 25 millimeters. That was the kind of differences whatever we had. Again, the gear ratios are different. If you look at the shafts, more than 60 to 70 millimeters was the difference. So with this, if you have to do a setup change in this particular line to accommodate these kind of parts, I think all of you know, it requires a lot of, longer downtime of the machines. For that, we need to develop a minimum loss line, or minimum setup change loss line. Just to talk a little bit about the scale of the project, this is our petrol line, that is manufacturing process of petrol, that is going through gear cutting operation. Then we have heat treatment, grinding, and then assembly. So this is the overall layout. This particular line has 28 loops or 28 cells, what we call, and it has 230 machines for making a petrol variant. If I have to do the diesel version in the same line, then I have to make more number of parts, because diesel has more number of parts in the same lines. As a summary, if you see, we have to have 33 loops and 285 machines that we need for the diesel. That means we have to utilize the existing lines to produce the diesel version on this particular line. So before I talk about what is that we try to do as a part of setup change, let me just give a brief about how the line runs on a single piece flow. I think this is for the interest of the people who have a batch production. We operate on a single piece flow. You can see the operator working. Basically, to produce one particular gear, it will go through 6 operations. What is written OP10, 20, 30? That is, it goes through lathe operations, broaching operations, hobbing, chamfering, and shaving. And you can see the operator, the one operator who is going through these 6 processes. He is loading and unloading parts in the different processes. It starts with the raw material, and the end product is a gear which comes out. So basically, if I have to change the variant from a petrol to a diesel, then in that case, I have to modify all the 6 machines to achieve the same part as an output of a diesel from petrol or vice versa. So the first important aspect for us is, what is the setup change time that we are going to achieve? How to fix the target? So what we try to do is, we try to look at our lines. If you see on the slide here, our current petrol line is running at an OA, overall availability or efficiency, of 92 to 93%, which we have achieved through various kaizens or improvements in the line. And our target, basically our global target is 90% efficiency. So if at all I had to produce both petrol and diesel variant in the same line, then I still have to maintain the efficiency of 90%. That says that on a conservative side, I have around 2% or 2 to 3% of efficiency loss that I can handle. So with that thinking, we said on a conservative basis, we said, let's say 2% loss, that is equal to 10 minutes. Let's try to achieve the setup change of the complete line within 10 minutes is what we set a target. And we try to look at, on a conventional, traditional way, if you had to change the tooling exactly 1:1, whatever is running right now, it was coming to around 72 minutes of setup change. So the target was huge, 10 minutes for the complete line to go through a setup change. Right, so based on this, we made our KPIs very clear. We said we will try to achieve one-touch setup wherever it is possible. Then, since the people are the ones who do the setup change, they cannot handle very heavy part. So we fixed some weight limits for the part to be handled. Then we said 0 line stop, because existing line is running. So without stopping the line, we have to do this kind of operation. And the bottom graph shows we had so many different kind of processes, like the broaching, the lathe, the grinding, the pressing, the deburring, these kind of all the operations which have to undergo the setup changes, which means a huge quantum of work. And the major part was the processes of like shaping, shaving, and hobbing, which are very critical in terms of gear accuracies, which goes to the tune of 2 to 8 microns, has to be handled. So the major challenge for us was, this is the first time in Toyota that the complete plant is going to undergo a setup change to produce a different variant. Otherwise, we had a little bit of experience of changing small parts or some small areas. So again, we did not have all the concepts available with our principal. So we summarized into 3 major challenges that we have to handle. One is we need to do a complete plant modification. That is 199 machines have to be handled for modification. And running change. That means with a minimum lead time of 6 months, we should not stop the line, running line. We have to change without, disturbing the running line. And third is we have to develop the skill of the people to be flexible to handle this kind of setup changes. Then the journey began. With this, we came out with some concepts. I brought some simple concepts which can be of interest to everyone. So if you look at lathe, for OD clamping, basically if I had to do different kind of parts on the lathe, what we try to look at is, we either try to change the complete check or the jaws. So we try to narrow down saying that we will only work on the jaws. We'll try to accommodate everything with the jaws. But again, traditional approach, if you see, we may have to look at completely removing the jaws from the lathe. So while doing brainstorming, we had various ideas. One of the ideas was like socket plunger mechanism. So socket plunger mechanism is the same wrench is used with multiple sockets, the ball plunger. So based on this thinking, we start developing a prototype, the new design, and we tested for the accuracies. Let me just demonstrate with some video here. So traditionally, if we have to do a setup change on a lathe to remove the jaws, we have to use a tool. We have to remove the bolts, remove the jaws, completely replace the jaws, and then we have to prove the accuracy. We came with a ball and plunger mechanism where we can just push or press fit on the check, all the jaws, and just start the machine. So these kind of concepts we could come on. And these kind of same ball plunger mechanism we try to do, once we achieve the accuracy here, we try to do the Yokoten or horizontal deployment in all the areas, like jaws or datum blocks or pusher. With this, traditionally what was taking 10 minutes came to 2 minutes. Similarly, if you look at again a lathe, which has to do a clamping with the collet, so it's much more challenging. There is a drawbar which pulls, and the moment you touch the collet, we have to prove the accuracies. I think the people who are maintenance will understand much better. So here also we came with very simple concept of locking through a rotation, which I will demonstrate through a video. So traditionally here again we have to remove the complete assembly and then we have to replace the assembly. But however, if you see on the right side of the video which is playing, just we can rotate the unit, and with the ball and plunger we can lock the particular unit in position. With this we are able to prove the accuracies. And again, this also came from a traditional 10 minutes to less than 2 minutes of the time. Let me also demonstrate some of the concepts going further. When it came to gear cutting, we tried to do a lot of brainstorming, but we were not able to come out with simpler ideas. Then we start benchmarking with our other affiliates and also local affiliates if they are doing some other activities. Then together with different kind of concepts, we came to some specific concept. If you look at a gear setup or gear hobbing, the bottom fixture is mostly rigid. It is bolted completely to the machine, and because of the accuracies. So if I had to remove that setup, I had to completely dismantle the bottom setup, which is very heavy, and once you put it back, you need to prove the accuracies, which is very, very difficult part. So here we, in line with the same as the ID clamping mechanism, we try to change the concept of locking, that is clamping from the bottom. So with this concept, same as the lathe, we were able to change the top collet. So these kind of concepts worked for us, but here we went through a major challenge of static accuracy of the parts. So since the part accuracy we had to achieve less than 10 microns overall on the gear, with all the accuracies, the part accuracy should be less than 2 microns was a challenge, which we had to do a lot of trial and error to achieve this kind of an accuracy. So with this, the time reduced from 18 minutes to 8 minutes. These are some of the examples of the line changes, some examples, but however, not only that, we try to work in all the areas. It's not about only changing the tooling part of, the jaws or the fixture elements of the machine. Also the tools which we handle, like in a broaching application, broaching is nothing but making serrations inside the part, which is displayed there. So while handling the broach size is so, the weight is so heavy, it starts from 40 kgs, it goes up to 120 kgs. Handling that by an operator is not easy. And if we try to use a lot of tackles and other things, the time increases. Here we try to do some benchmarking or brainstorming, thinking of using a swirl mechanism, how it is used on a tap. So I'll just demonstrate through a video. Here a heavy broach of around 90 kgs is loaded on the swirl mechanism. Currently he is changing the setup from a diesel version to a petrol version. He's changing the tool in the machine. You see he located the tool holder on the swirl mechanism. He has lowered the broach, which is around 90 kgs. So broach declamping is done on the machine. He has put it in position, then rotated the fixture to achieve a setup change for the broach. So the petrol version goes to the machine. So here the broach is clamped again. Once it is clamped, then the whole setup is put back to home position, and then the further setup changes are done to carry out this kind of trial. So we did kind of a lot of trial and error and a lot of designing these kind of concepts to achieve these things, and we could horizontally deploy to our other lines, like the heat treatment shop or the gear tester. This significantly reduced our tool change time from 15 minutes to 3 minutes. Going further, on the machining side, we are talking about 10 minutes. However, the assembly line also has to run. So we cannot afford these kind of minutes on the assembly line because it runs a very high takt time. So here we had narrowed down based on our calculation that the setup change should be less than 5 seconds based on our timing. So some of the things which I'd like to demonstrate here. So on the assembly line, to handle the bigger parts, we need to have a lot of tackles which needs to be used for handling the parts. We try to see how we can do it on the same tackle. With the same kind of mechanisms, whatever we try to see there, we made simple mechanism here. So if you see, the operator here is trying to load a sub-assembly on the main assembly. So here, before I finish my talking, he has already changed the setup. So he has expanded the position and he has swelled on particular mechanism to achieve the particular shape of the sling. So this kind of small things helped us to eliminate or have a same sling for many variants. Let's look at other mechanisms that we have developed. I think when we look at assembly, one of the major areas is the pallet, because the more variants you add to the line, we have to change the pallets, and pallet changing is not an easy job. So here also we try to look at how can we quickly change without changing the pallet, how can we commonize the pallet. So after a lot of workout, we came out with some simple mechanism where you can see by tilting mechanisms, we can change the pallet where we can accommodate both the variants. If you see the video, he's changing the setup of the pallet. So if you see, the operator has done one change, 90 degrees another, and a third change. That's all. Less than 5 seconds was the requirement. Within 2 seconds we could achieve, just by changing the position of the datum block, we can achieve the setup changes on this kind of pallets. Well, this is how we try to look at a lot of solutions. We have come up with more than 300 solutions to achieve the complete setup change of all the areas. Now the question is, how do we achieve these mechanisms or changes within the 10 minutes time, within the particular line? So if you look at the line, I'll just try to demonstrate. This is one particular line which is producing gear first to gear fourth. And if you look at when gear first triggers a setup change, each cell is operated by one operator. When it triggers a setup change, the operator of the line and the line support member who's supporting the line and the team leader come to the line to that particular cell, and then those three people carry out the setup change. Now let me demonstrate how it happens. So if you look at, as I said, our target of 10 minutes, what we have to achieve. So with this, when we worked out on each process, we made sure that each process is less than 10 minutes of the setup change time. But however, with this, I require to change the setup of all the machines. I require 6 people to do at the same time. Here we did a little bit of Yamazumi balancing or the time balancing, and with that we were able to achieve with 3 people. Like we made a very clear job plan. So operation 10 and 20 handled by one operator, and other 3 by another one, and one particular which is required around 8 minutes by one operator. With 3 members we were able to achieve the setup change. I mean, within 10 minutes with 3 members we are able to do a setup change. So just a small video to just show that how actually it happens on the line. So these 3 people, the operator and the other 2 people have come to the line and they are carrying out the setup changes. So basically if you see, none of the operators are working with any tools. They're just pulling out parts from the machine and replacing with another parts on the machine. Then the machines are put in the setup and then they are started. That's how it operates. And if you see one operator backside is trying to do something with the hoist and all. That's what was the beginning, what we did when we were handling the broach. Then we changed it to the square mechanism, which I tried to show you in my previous slides. So anyway, it was not that easy as I am trying to explain here. We had a lot of struggles in the journey. Like we made a clear modification process plan from proving the static accuracy of the line to switching trials. That means how to get the first part okay. But the major things that we have gone through is the rigid fixture was changing to a flexible fixture, which calls for, which says a lot of accuracies are going to get disturbed. But we have to achieve the same accuracies. And we have to prove the quality in one shot, which was very difficult. Sometimes we have to do 2 to 3 iterations to get the correct quality and then redesign the particular blocks. And very important on the quality side, we have to achieve the process capability or the machine capability that we require out of 1.33. So not only this, like while we were carrying out the activities, we came across with like a lot of hurdles, like we had a lot of interferences with the tools on the machines, for which we started immediately. The first machine when we did, we had a problem, we started simulation trials so that we don't have this kind of problem in the other machine. We had a static accuracies problem with the jigs, what we got from our supplier. So we started the critical parameter inspection by ourselves. Then we had some wrong design selection, like springs and all, we were not able to design because of our capability. So we started doing some FMEA on the design to make sure that the next machine doesn't suffer that kind of things. So these kind of reflections we started documenting and we started standardizing. So every problem that we face, we try to look at how we can reflect on our activities with this particular thing. So all the key points are added. So with this, our first challenge of 199 machines, we could look at all the kind of possibilities to do a setup change. The next task is all this was done within a frame of 6 months. The lead time was very, very minimum. I just demonstrate what is that we did. So on the project schedule, everything has to be achieved within the 6 months. So we had to make a strategy how we are going to go ahead. Fortunately if you look at our lines, for us as engineering, our lines were running in one shift operation, that is all 6 days, one shift operation. So whichever cell we were taking for the setup change, what we did is, we tried to do a little bit of inventory, that is, we tried to operate 3 days in 2 shifts instead of 1 week single shift. And based on that, we got 3 days available for doing the setup change for one particular cell. And we had a buffer of Sunday. That means around 2 to 3 machines is what we have to handle per day. So this is how we carried out our activities on the line. So with this we could manage with a lot of hurdles. And finally, people are supposed to carry out this kind of setup change. That is, human resource development is the key. So how to achieve the skill and flexibility? It's a running line. So we cannot touch the running line. So how do we change? So for that, when we looked at, what we did is we established a dojo. So now what is a dojo? Dojo is a Japanese word for a training center. So we made a training center and basically to improve the skill of the people. Here our slogan was every time same, everybody same. With this kind of understanding, we started training our members. And we made a clear objective that we cannot do a lot of adjustments after the setup change. The first time, the moment we do the setup change, the first part should always be okay. So with these concepts, with this kind of objectives, we started making our complete plan. This is some of the glimpses of dojo. It was not a very sophisticated dojo. We tried to replicate same as the machine. Can you go back? Yeah, same as the machine condition. The jigs were made in such a way that it is same as the machine. And we can see some of the videos where the person, he is doing the setup change in the dojo, in the training center. Here the intention is to achieve the muscle memory, because we cannot afford to go to the line and try to do these kind of activities. So with this, we try to achieve the muscle memory. If you look at the skill chart, as a summary, 80% of the skill we could achieve. That means both time and sequence, what is required in dojo we could achieve. And remaining 20%, we try to focus through on-job development, that is going to the machine, because the actual condition of the machine, whatever we tried to simulate, was a little different. Like if you see one of the cases, we tried to do as a reflection, same guard as a machine with a cardboard. And he tried to see whether it's going to interfere, how difficult it is for ergonomic wise. And a lot of suggestions came up through this kind of a dojo. Yeah. So basically, that's what we did. And if you see as the result, overall results, we could achieve the changes with 0 accidents and 0 incidents. On the quality, whatever parameters we fixed, that is machine capabilities of more than 1 we could achieve in all our areas. And then accuracy of the first part, we could, with lot of switching trials, we came to a conclusion that we had to achieve 80% of the tolerance band. The moment we do a setup change, it should lie within 80% of the tolerance band. It cannot be outside the tolerance band. So with this, quality also was okay. And the major portion, that is setup change time. Traditionally, if you would have carried out the activity, it would have costed us 43.55 hours on a cumulative basis to do the whole plant setup change. With these kind of mechanisms, we were able to arrive at 6.15 hours. That is 86% is what we could reduce. And if you look at the efficiencies, before the modification or after the modification, there was a drop of 1 or 2% as per calculations. But however, we were able to achieve within our set target of 90 minutes. So other part of it, the major portion was on the investment. So investment, we could reduce more than 51%, so the tune of around 60 to 65 crores. Basically, this helped us in lot of value creation in the line. So if you see, earlier we were making only petrol version, or with this kind of setup, now our lines are flexible to carry out any kind of volume fluctuations. Also, we can add any kind of variant on the line. And on the environment front, a lot of things we could save in terms of CO2. But however, when we talk about energy, because we commonize the machines, the idling time, the coolant, such things we were able to eliminate. With that, we were able to see that 42% of the energy we could reduce on these particular lines. Basically, our line is now ready for the future for any kind of variant that can come on the line. As an overall achievement, with the 3 objectives that I tried to demonstrate in the beginning. So basically, we could modify all the 199 machines out of our plan. We could achieve the 6 months of lead time for this. And on the human resource, we set up some parameters for improving even the skill of our engineers. That is how we try to validate and check based on our activity. As a part of further value creation, so if you look at on the, it all happened in the seat transmission line. So we don't have opportunity for doing setup changes in other plants like our transmission or the engine or the axle line. But however, we use these concepts to make our loading, unloading, such kind of areas easy for our operator to do. So with this, we were able to carry out Yokoten. And these concepts, whatever we developed, we were able to share with a lot of our other Toyota affiliates all across the globe. Now these are being tried out or being used in other affiliates as well. So it was the first time in Toyota that the whole plant has undergone the setup change. So basically, this is what we did as a part of the setup change. But our journey doesn't end here. So while we were doing this activity, in 2016, we tried to talk a little bit about Karakuri, that is the low-cost automation for doing our activities. So what we did is, while we were carrying out the setup change activity, so whatever setup change ideas that we were generating, we started utilizing these ideas in our low-cost automations. And same time, the low-cost automation, we started assisting the operator to save his time so that we carry out the setup change, like whatever 2 extra additional people that has to go to the line for setup change are all compensated with the same people who are there. So we try to reduce these kind of things. Some of the automations that were done on a very low cost are displayed here. So going ahead with this, because we wanted a lot of ideas from people, because ideas cannot come from one person. So the power of thinking is what is most important for anyone. So based on that, what we try to do is, we try to establish a Karakuri workshop for people, where people can come out with different kind of ideas. And we started with a learn with fun concept, with 3 days curriculum, where we talk about theory and then practical, actual checking on the shop floor and then practical. So based on this particular thing, so we were able to get a lot of ideas. At the same time, there was a lot of inquiries from other affiliates to learn on these concepts. So we started a complete classroom for our other supplier partners as well to educate them on these mechanisms. In the same time, we have got benefit by getting a lot of ideas from them when they went through our curriculum. So we were also able to use these kind of ideas in our thing. So this is what is about my overall activity about the setup change. Basically, if you look at in the morning session, Mr. Murugam said that productivity is not an activity, it is a culture. So we also believe the same. We say that it's not a destination, it is a journey of continuous improvement. So basically, this is also one of our steps towards our vision, that is TCAP's vision of win India, win the world, and to become the most admired manufacturer of ever better units. This concludes my presentation on the setup change. So if you have any questions or suggestions, I'll be very keen to answer or take.
So friends, I think you have seen this wonderful presentation from TCAP on how they went around doing it. The idea is not to show you the presentation from the point of view of learning or anything like that at this point of time. The idea is that to give you a hands-on feel of how this whole event happens and how you could possibly be a part of that. Arjun, you can put on the slides, further slides. So
Yes,
yeah, this gives you a very good idea of where you want to go, how you want to go around doing it, and gives you a look and feel of the event itself. So this is our National Productivity Summit. The next summit is going to happen in Bangalore in the month of November. The exact dates will be informed in due course of time. Just a peek into the some photographs of the event just to give you a feel of what was on there. And here you see now the winners of the past summit, and literally the who's who of manufacturing industry in India is there. And this gives you an opportunity to be on this, this panel on which you would also be a member of that. So we urge you. Look at also the bottom part. We have some awards for the SME industries. So this is what, and as you could see that from that video of TCAP, the kind of things that they come out with, the innovations that they come out with, and it's something that you can do. And you then start talking to those people. You have access to those people at that event to network with them. And even after the event, you can be in touch with them and find out what they did and how they did it, and see how you can do something not necessarily similar, but in your own situation, something different but innovative. So this is the platform that IMTMA is giving you. And this is where we say, okay, you come, share your success stories, and enjoy this whole event. That is what we are trying to do, and be a competitor. Now I will show you a small video about presentation, just a 1.5 minute video, very glimpse of it, but you will enjoy seeing that. TCAP won the first prize. Meanwhile, so you got a feel of what the whole event is about, how to compete, and much more information you will get on the website. We'll just give you that detail in the last slide. The next slide. Okay. So your contact people are Abhishek and Prashant. Their phone numbers are there. Their email IDs are there, and the website is there. On the website, you will find this 8-page case study template.